Well, a lot of what we try to do is to get policymakers to understand the issue of family homelessness and then support more affordable housing. So one example would be we were seeking an amendment to get more housing vouchers for families. And we met with a legislator who said he wasn't going to be able to sign on to the amendment. He had other priorities he was watching out for, was looking for his local community stuff, and was sort of a beginning legislator. So we had a legislative breakfast where we invite policymakers and legislators to come into shelters to listen to the families, to talk to the staff. So he came out to the visit and the families shared their stories, and as soon as he got back to the State House he signed on to the amendment, and now we don't even have to call him. He's always the first person to sign on. So really, and really shared with families that it was hearing directly from them, that he really didn't understand their situation, but hearing directly from them has changed his mindset, and now he's one of our biggest champions at the State House. I've done the census, I think, for about 4 years now, and it's a great experience. I think you see there's lots of people that come out. The number of volunteers always amaze me. A nice mix of people that work in the field, college students, community members. When you leave City Hall, I think it's around 9 o'clock. Yes. It's a little early for people setting up camps, especially in a city. So I've actually seen more. The area that I've done in the past has been Chinatown. So generally we walk through Downtown Crossing, which follows the mayor's group, and there's always one or two in Downtown Crossing that he can get his. And he is very dedicated to the issue, but there is the photo opportunity. But then often on the way back, we'll see people starting to set up camp that weren't, or set up for the night that weren't there before. And I think, especially since I have done the Chinatown area, that's a part of the city that stays up a little later. There's lots of action later on. But I know that there are some encampments there, but I think I've only ever seen one or two people that are there. So but it's good and bad. I mean, part of it's the census, so you want to count people, and that's part of it, but it should be a good thing to not see them. But I think, it's when we've gone out, the people that, the one gentleman that was sleeping in a doorway and had a bunch of blankets on him, when the census people stopped and we asked him, did the checklist of asking if he was a veteran or had served in the military, if he was okay, if he was warm, if he needed food. It was very sweet and gracious, was sort of, I'm fine. No, he pulled out, he had a sandwich under his blanket, and you can tell he had been on the street for a long time, but was not intimidated by the census, and was even sort of gracious to be asked how he was doing. But it depends on the area. Then, where the people in the, they get the common, there's more people that are there and in certain encampments. So it depends on which area of the city that you're canvassing of what your experience will be. Sure, I think the only thing is with the census, it's mostly counting the street population and just recognizing the big family crisis that we have and how hidden families are, just because of the fear of what would happen of children being taken away if families are on the streets, and parents wanting to keep their children safe and not on the streets. So a lot of families either stay doubled up or in unsafe situation, or in cars in more hidden areas. And then obviously the families that are in shelters and motels get counted, but there's also that hidden aspect of families that we don't see, that are homeless, that are out there. And I do think we're always sort of cautious each year as this crisis gets worse of seeing families when we do the census and seeing kids. I know last year I believe there was one father and his child living at South Station. And that's sort of the only family that we've heard that has been found on the streets, but it's always a big fear going into the census that we're going to see some, but also want to recognize that there are the families out there. They're just not sleeping on the streets.